Right after my mom's memorial, my dad introduced his mistress, smirking. I've waited long enough. But when his old business partner pulled out another will, my stepmom's smile dropped, and my dad looked like he'd seen a ghost. I never thought I'd see him fall so hard, until the board voted him out before the wedding cake was even cut. I couldn't believe it was real until I stood in front of the glass plaque with her name etched in silver. Elaine Matthews. Visionary. Founder. Mother. I swallowed the lump in my throat and looked around. The memorial garden shimmered in the late afternoon sun, a polished corporate oasis built outside the company's headquarters in Mountain View. Everything smelled like money and artificial lavender. They curated this whole event like it was a product launch, not a funeral. My name's Aaron. I'm 38, born and raised in California. And on the day my mother was honored for building a tech empire with my father, I realized she died a stranger in her own story. Dad, Gregory Matthews, stood stiffly beside the stone podium in his CEO uniform. Dark navy suit, crisp white shirt, no tie, no emotion. His lips twitched into what someone might call a smile as a junior exec read off some PR-approved speech about vision and perseverance. He didn't clap, didn't cry. He checked his Rolex twice. My sister Lisa stood with her arms crossed, face frozen, like she couldn't decide whether to cry or punch someone. Mark, our half-brother, 17 and silent, hovered near the back, earbuds in, his shoulders hunched. He looked like he wanted to disappear into the hedge wall. When the speeches ended and the crowd pretended to mourn, Gregory stepped up. Of course he did. The spotlight always found him. Thank you all for coming, he began. Elaine was extraordinary. A partner in every sense of the word. He paused like that meant something. My stomach turned. As you know, this company was our shared dream. But time moves forward. And I believe Elaine would want us to continue building, growing, evolving. Which is why, effective today, I'm stepping down as CEO. There was a ripple of surprised murmurs through the crowd. I turned to Lisa. She blinked. Mark pulled one earbud out. Gregory straightened his shoulders and smiled, for real this time. Please welcome my successor and wife, Fiona. A tall woman in a cream business suit stepped out from the side garden like she'd been waiting behind the curtain. Fiona, his consultant for the last decade. The woman who always showed up to board retreats in Chanel and a tight smile. The woman who, until today, had been just subtle enough not to be official. Gasps. Whispers. Someone actually clapped. She took his arm like they were on a red carpet. Thank you, Gregory, she purred, her voice sliding through the crowd like ice water. It's an honor to continue Elaine's legacy in business and in family. Family. Lisa's mouth fell open. I stared at them, waiting for some kind of punchline. But Fiona kept going. To celebrate new beginnings, she said, we'll be holding our wedding dinner this evening. Right here. In this garden. With all of you. Right here. Where we just buried my mother. Mark turned and walked away without a word. Lisa muttered, what the actual hell? And I couldn't say anything. I just stood there, blinking at the two of them, beaming under a banner that still read, in loving memory of Elaine. And that was the moment I knew. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a corporate takeover of grief, of legacy, of us. They redecorated the lounge in less than 2 hours. Same building, same name on the wall, Elaine Matthews Innovation Center, but now with soft jazz, crystal flutes of champagne, and floral centerpieces in Fiona's brand colors. Gold and cream. My mother would have hated it. I stood near the back, nursing a drink I didn't want. Lisa sat beside me, her heels kicked off, arms wrapped around herself like she was holding in a screen. Mark was slouched on a velvet bench, tapping through his phone like the world wasn't caving in around us. Unbelievable, Lisa muttered. He didn't even wait a full day. I don't think he waited a full year, I said. She glanced at Fiona across the room, laughing with a group of upper execs like she'd always belonged. You think Mom knew? I didn't answer. Because we both knew the truth. Gregory tapped his glass with a fork. Everyone, he said, raising his voice just enough. If I could just have a minute. I could already feel it coming, the grand speech, the back-patting, the rewrite of history. I want to thank you all for being here today and tonight. Life, as you know, doesn't wait. It moves forward. He placed a hand on Fiona's back. And so do we. Fiona smiled like a politician. The room clinked with half-hearted toasts. I stared into my glass, watching the bubbles rise like little lies. To new beginnings, Gregory said, lifting his champagne. To rewriting the will, Lisa whispered under her breath. Across the room, Edmund Doyle, a longtime family friend and one of the original investors in the company, stepped forward. He looked out of place in his rumpled gray suit and red tie, like someone had invited an accountant to a runway show. Sorry, Edmund said, clearing his throat. Before we all get too deep into these new beginnings. I've got something. Gregory's smile froze. I was asked, Edmund continued, holding up a manila envelope, to deliver this only if Gregory remarried after Elaine's passing. She made me promise. Fiona tilted her head, amused. Gregory let out a short laugh. Oh, for God's sake, Edmund. But the room had gone still. Edmund opened the envelope. His hands didn't shake. It's a revised shareholder clause and an updated version of Elaine's will. He paused, then looked directly at Gregory. Apparently, she had the last word after all. Gregory's face darkened. Fiona's smile twitched. And suddenly, everyone who had just been toasting them, executives, board members, investors, started shifting in their seats, eyes darting toward the document in Edmund's hands. Whatever illusion Gregory had tried to sell them tonight was cracking, and I was more than ready to watch it shatter. Edmund adjusted his glasses and unfolded the document slowly, like he knew exactly how heavy it was. Elaine Matthews, he began, signed this document 34 days before her death. It was witnessed, notarized, and filed through her legal counsel. Gregory stepped forward, hand outstretched. That's enough, Edmund. But Edmund ignored him. The revised terms address corporate shares, voting control, and estate distribution, specifically under the condition of Gregory's remarriage following her death. Lisa leaned in. Wait. She knew he'd do this. She didn't just know, I said. She planned for it. Gregory's jaw twitched. This is absurd. She was heavily medicated. She couldn't. She was lucid, Edmund said, cutting him off. I sat with her while she dictated every word. You weren't there. Silence fell like a curtain. Fiona's hand slipped from Gregory's arm. In the event of remarriage, Edmund read, voice steady, Gregory Matthews shall forfeit all control and ownership of Matthews Tech Incorporated, effective immediately. All voting shares, board authority, and leadership privileges will be transferred in equal parts to her children, Aaron Matthews, Lisa Matthews, and Mark Talbot. I heard Lisa inhale like she'd been underwater too long. Mark looked up from his phone, stunned. What? Gregory snapped, stepping toward him. She can't do that. She did, Edmund said. Fiona blinked rapidly, her eyes darting from the paper to Gregory. This has to be a mistake. It's no mistake, Edmund replied. She also included amendments to her personal estate. All assets, property, and trust holdings are to be divided equally among the children. Gregory Matthews is removed as beneficiary. There was a loud clink as someone dropped a glass nearby. Fiona's face had gone pale. Her polished composure was unraveling. No fallback. She whispered to Gregory, barely audible. He didn't answer. His hands were trembling. In the crowd, I saw heads turning, some stunned, some smug. A few board members nodded slowly, like they'd been waiting years for this moment. One of them, Latham Green, CFO, whispered something to the general counsel beside him, who immediately pulled out his phone. I didn't even realize I was smiling. Gregory looked around, visibly panicking now. I built this company. Elaine and I, we founded it together. Yes, Edmund said, folding the papers calmly. And she made sure you wouldn't burn it down alone. Gregory turned to Fiona. It's fine. This doesn't hold up. We'll fix it. But Fiona was already stepping away from him. Her expression was no longer confused. It was calculating. You told me everything was handled, she said flatly. He reached for her hand. It is. I need to talk to legal. Fiona took a step back. You said I'd be protected. And just like that, her smile vanished for good. The woman who walked into the garden on his arm had vanished. The one standing there now looked like she was already planning her exit. Elaine hadn't just written a will. She'd written the ending to Gregory's story and made damn sure everyone would read it out loud. Gregory snatched the document from Edmund's hand, flipping through the pages like sheer force could erase the ink. This is garbage, he muttered. It's invalid. I'll contest every line. She was dying when she signed this. No, Edmund said calmly. She was angry. And very, very clear. Gregory looked up at him, something vicious behind his eyes. You think you're doing her a favor? You're just a bitter old man trying to get back at me. Edmund didn't flinch. I'm just honoring her last request. Gregory's eyes scanned the paper again, and I saw it hit him, really hit him. The part where he had nothing. No power. No title. Not even the lake house in Tahoe. Across the room, Fiona stepped back. One slow step. Then another. Where are you going? Gregory asked, voice tight. She didn't answer at first. Just stared down at the floor like she couldn't believe she was here. Like she'd walked into someone else's nightmare. Fiona, he said louder. We'll fix this. You and me. Stick to the plan. She met his eyes then, and whatever fake softness she'd been wearing all day evaporated. There is no plan, she said. His face crumpled for a second, then hardened again. You knew what this was. We agreed. We didn't agree to this, she snapped, her voice low and sharp. You told me this company was yours. That Elaine was long gone, and so was her control. Gregory looked desperate now. I needed time. I could have. I was going to finalize everything after the wedding. That wasn't a wedding, she cut in. It was a PR stunt in a graveyard. The room was dead silent. Even the bartender behind the mahogany counter had frozen mid-pour. Fiona exhaled, then reached into her purse, pulled out a small envelope, one of the wedding place cards, and laid it gently on the table beside the champagne. Gregory and Fiona Matthews, it read in gold cursive. She tapped it once with her manicured finger. I'll keep the memories, she said dryly. But I'm not keeping the name. Then she turned and walked out. No drama. No crying. Just the sound of her heels clicking against the polished floor as she disappeared through the same double doors she'd entered from hours ago, a ghost in cream. Gregory stood frozen, still gripping the papers, his face a mix of rage and disbelief. And just like that, the man who ruled every room he entered was standing in the middle of his own reception with no bride, no company, and no idea what the hell to do next. Elaine hadn't just ended his career. She'd exposed him. And now, everyone could see exactly what he was without her. The penthouse hadn't changed since Mom died. Same white marble floors, same towering view of the bay, same cold silence pressing in from every angle. But that night, when Lisa, Mark, and I stepped off the elevator with the legal documents in hand, it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a boardroom, one where the power had finally shifted. Gregory was pacing in the living room when we walked in. No jacket, shirt untucked, hair still perfectly combed, as if he could keep everything together with enough hair gel and denial. You can't just walk in here like you own the place, he snapped. Lisa didn't flinch. She set her copy of the court order on the coffee table. Actually, we can. Effective immediately. He glanced down at the document but didn't touch it. This is my home. My company. My life. No, I said quietly. It was Mom's. You just got to enjoy the ride. Gregory scoffed. You're still mad about the garden? About Fiona? You think this gives you the right to evict your own father? Mark, who hadn't said a word since we entered, finally stepped forward. He held up his own set of keys, the ones Mom had given him when she updated the trust. She wanted us to be safe. To have something she built, not something you'd ruin. Gregory's mouth tightened. You're a child. You don't understand what it takes to run a legacy. Neither do you, Lisa said. He turned to me next. Aaron, come on. You're the oldest. You know this is insane. I stepped up beside my siblings. I know a lot of things now. Like how you used Mom's illness to start selling off shares behind her back. Like how you planned to announce your retirement right after burying her. You didn't grieve, Dad. You staged a press release. You think you're better than me, he said, eyes narrowing. No, I said. I think I'm finally done trying to be. For a moment, he looked like he might fight it, that desperate twitch in his jaw, like he'd bark an order and someone would still listen. But no one moved. Lisa crossed her arms. You have 48 hours to pack. After that, the building security knows you're no longer authorized. Gregory didn't argue. He just sat down on the couch, staring out at the skyline he no longer owned. And the three of us turned away, walking out together, finally in control of the house he once ruled alone. Gregory filed a lawsuit 6 days later. It came in the form of a thick envelope, hand-delivered to Lisa's apartment by a grim-faced courier who didn't meet her eyes. Inside was the official complaint, an attempt to contest Elaine's will, challenge the revised shareholder transfer, and reclaim wrongfully revoked assets. I read through the entire thing in silence, then handed it to our attorney with a sigh. How desperate do you have to be to sue your own children? Lisa poured herself a glass of wine without asking. He's not suing us. He's flailing. This is all he has left. Mark shrugged. Let him swing. The will's airtight. And it was. Elaine had anticipated every loophole. She documented everything with clinical precision, dates, signatures, even video logs. Our legal team had everything locked and bolted before Gregory ever picked up a pen. The court rejected the initial motion without a hearing. 2 days later, Fiona changed her number. He left a voicemail on my phone by mistake, slurred, rambling, pleading for someone named Phi to please just talk to me. I deleted it without a word. Then Mark did something none of us expected. He called Gregory. It was a short call, under 2 minutes. But afterward, Mark walked into my apartment, tossed his phone on the table, and said, he's exactly the same. I looked up. You spoke to him? He tried to make it sound like all this was Mom's fault. Said we let her manipulate us. Told me I needed to grow up and think for myself. Lisa leaned on the kitchen counter. Did he even say he was sorry? Mark gave a small, humorless laugh. Nope. Just said we'd regret siding with her. He didn't say anything else that night. But the next morning, he deleted Gregory's number from his phone and blocked it. He never spoke to him again. Meanwhile, the damage to Gregory's reputation was spreading. He tried reaching out to journalists, but no one bit. The board had already released a formal statement backing the new leadership, emphasizing integrity and continuity, words that said everything without naming him once. Even his longtime assistant, Miriam, who'd been with him since the company's garage days, resigned publicly. Her statement was short. After reviewing recent events and documents, I can no longer work under someone whose values conflict with those of the company's founding vision. By week's end, Gregory was fully isolated. No board seat. No employees. No allies. Just a man alone in a penthouse he no longer owned, shouting into an echo chamber where no one answered back. It started with a single anonymous email, then 2, then 6. By the end of the week, over a dozen internal tips had landed in our new compliance inbox, all pointing to the same thing: financial misconduct. Quiet whispers turned into loud patterns. And signed contracts, offshore transfers, vendor kickbacks, all dating back to the final year of Mom's illness. Gregory hadn't just been planning a future with Fiona. He'd been gutting the company's foundations while she was in hospice. Lisa forwarded the first full report to me with a single line: "I hope he chokes on this." We didn't go public right away. We handed everything over to legal, let the firm's forensic accountants comb through it. What they found wasn't just unethical, it was criminal. Misallocated R&D funds. Personal trips billed as business retreats. Even a phantom subsidiary in the Caymans with 0 employees and a 7-figure marketing budget. Elaine had built this company in her garage. Gregory had tried to turn it into a slush fund. The news broke on a Wednesday. A brief article from a mid-tier tech outlet. Nothing flashy, just enough to get attention. But once it was out, it spread like wildfire. By Friday, the headlines were everywhere. Gregory Matthews under investigation for financial misconduct. Widower CEO accused of fraud weeks after wife's memorial. Board confirms siblings in control after shocking reveal. Lisa stood in my office, scrolling through her phone. 40,000 retweets in 6 hours. "Don't read the comments," I muttered. I stopped at, "What kind of sociopath announces a wedding during a funeral?" Sponsors began pulling out within days. A global software partner suspended their contract. 2 venture capital firms quietly retracted upcoming investments. PR nightmares have a scent, and ours reeked of betrayal and bad press. The board issued a statement. "The Matthews children, Aaron, Lisa, and Mark, have our full support and confidence. Their mother's legacy, both ethically and professionally, is in capable hands." Translation: Gregory who? The final blow came in a photo. Someone spotted him outside a second-tier law office in downtown San Jose, wearing the same navy blazer from the memorial and loafers that looked 2 decades old. The headline read, "The Fall of a Founder." His face in the picture looked melted. Not just older, but reduced. The tight jaw replaced with drooping lines. The eyes dull. Alone on the sidewalk, looking like he was waiting for someone who would never arrive. He sold his remaining shares within the month. We offered nothing for them. He needed the money to cover legal fees. Fiona had already moved back to New York. His friends had stopped answering calls. Even the elevator in his old building had been reprogrammed, no access to the penthouse. I printed the article and slid it into a folder labeled Archival. For history, not revenge. Because Gregory Matthews didn't just lose his empire. He became a cautionary tale in a story he thought he was still writing. I hadn't seen him in person since the night Fiona walked out. But 3 months later, on a gray Tuesday morning, I found myself outside a crumbling studio apartment on the edge of Santa Clara, the kind of place with peeling paint, a cracked buzzer, and a door that stuck halfway open. Gregory Matthews answered in socks and an old company fleece. His eyes were sunken, his hair thinner. The man who once lectured keynote audiences on innovation and leadership now looked like someone who spent most days avoiding mirrors. He stared at me for a long moment, then stepped aside. "I figured you'd come eventually," he said. I didn't answer. I walked in, set the folder on the table. Inside, the final legal transfer. A document that made everything official. Every remaining sliver of ownership. Every tie to Matthews Tech gone. His name erased from the corporate structure he used to command. He sat down slowly, avoiding my eyes. The room smelled like burnt coffee and silence. "You didn't have to come in person," he said. "I know." He reached for the folder, his hand shaking just slightly. "Is this the last one?" "It is." He nodded, eyes scanning the first page. "Your mother really planned it all out, didn't she?" "She always did." A long pause settled between us. The radiator rattled in the corner. I looked around. No photos, no books, no sign of Fiona or friends or even himself. Just a chair, a couch, and a man trying not to disappear. "You could have fought harder," I said, finally. "You could have apologized. You could have done anything." He didn't look up. "Would it have changed anything?" I didn't answer. Gregory exhaled slowly, set the folder down. "I'm not going to ask for forgiveness, Aaron. That's not what this is." "Good." I stood. He didn't. For the first time in my life, I looked at him and didn't feel small. I didn't feel scared or angry or desperate for him to see me. I just felt done. He had become a man with nothing left but the echo of his mistakes. As I turned to leave, he spoke once more, not loudly, not bitterly. "Tell Mark I'm sorry." I didn't stop. I didn't nod. I just walked through the door and down the steps, out into the quiet street where the only thing that followed me was the sound of my own footsteps. He was no longer a giant in my life. He was just a man, surrounded by what he'd built and what he'd lost. The garden had a new name now. The brass sign out front gleamed in the spring sun, the Elaine Matthews Foundation Garden for Innovation and Community. No longer a memorial to a brand. No longer a corporate stage. It was hers. Fully, finally, hers. We stood together under the arbor she loved, Lisa, Mark, and me, surrounded by community leaders, educators, tech mentors, and young entrepreneurs. Not a single executive in sight unless they were here to listen. Mark adjusted the microphone as he stepped up to the podium. He wasn't nervous like he used to be. His voice was stronger now, grounded. My mother believed technology should make people's lives better, he said. But she also believed power without responsibility was a form of cruelty. Today, we launched the Elaine Initiative, a grant program for young innovators who've never had a seat at the table. Applause rippled through the crowd. Mark smiled, just a little, then stepped back as Lisa took his place. We grew up in a house where silence meant survival, she said. But our mother's legacy wasn't silence. It was resistance. It was building something permanent, even when people tried to take it. So this foundation, this garden, isn't just for remembering her. It's for continuing what she started. I looked around as the audience stood and clapped. Some had tears in their eyes. Others nodded like they finally understood what Elaine had meant beyond quarterly earnings and press quotes. As they stepped down, I took the stage one last time. I didn't bring a speech, just the truth. My mom used to say that legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what you teach people to carry forward. For years, I thought the company was her legacy, the product, the empire. But now I know better. I turned toward Lisa and Mark, then back to the crowd. It was us. I stepped down and joined them again. We stood shoulder to shoulder as the ceremony ended. The air smelled like lilac and lemon balm, Mom's favorites. A light breeze swept through the trees she'd planted along the back fence. The old garden had been a monument to her death. This one was a promise. As we walked among the crowd, shaking hands and meeting scholarship applicants, I realized something I hadn't felt in a long time. I was smiling, not out of spite, not because Gregory was gone, but because for the first time, we weren't just reclaiming a legacy. We were planting something new.